Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And it's games leaving the collection this time for May. So we got another month, another roundup of the things that did not make it this time. We have 12 games today. 12 games. From those 12 games, I have not played one of them. Sometimes reluctantly, games that I have not played do eventually leave. One of them is kind of just a fake tease because it's really not leaving my collection, but I'll explain further. And then the other 10 are going to be games that I have decided for one reason or another that I don't need to own them. As usual, well, actually, there's going to be as usual, and there's going to be a new disclaimer that I'm going to be starting to do. The as usual part is lots of good games here. It's very rare, not very rare. It's more often than not, the games I'm getting rid of are games that I enjoy, that I had fun playing, that I think are good. But I only have so many games. I only have so much time for games, and so much space for games, and so much mental energy for games. So I tend to keep what I consider the best of the best. And sometimes I get rid of games because I've played them enough. It's time to move on from them. Some of those are going to be in this video. Sometimes I think they're good games, but I just prefer playing other games. And that's basically it. The new disclaimer part of this video, because I got a comment from my last one that I think is relevant, worth mentioning. I am somebody who has always played a lot of games and cycled through a lot of games. I have access to a lot of games, both because I run a board game store, both because I'm a content creator, and also because even before those things, I choose to spend most of my additional hobby funds or, extra quality of life living funds go towards board games. And that's where I choose to spend my time, energy, and money. Which means this video, this concept, this series does not necessarily reflect yourself. It does not reflect necessarily the average gamer, which means take what you want out of this. It is certainly a measure of the games I choose to value more or less than others, but it's not a measure past that. So, with that said, let's start with the tease, and the tease is going to be Seven Wonders. So, why is this a tease? Can you tell me why it's a tease? That's correct. It's because I have finally played the new version of the game, and I am slowly starting to build out my new version of the game. I have Seven Wonders and Seven Wonders Leaders from the new version. This currently has Leaders, Babel, Seasons, Cities, not Seasons, has Cities. I think I have Armada somewhere else, but this has all the content in it, all prepped, ready to go. I will be upgrading to the new version. I got a copy of the new version to see if I want to upgrade, now that they started teasing that they have new expansion content coming, and I thought the new art, I like the iconography, the glary, silvery foil backs weren't as bad as I thought, so I am indeed upgrading to a new version, which means Seven Wonders, if anything, not only is it not really going away, I'm even willing to continue to invest time, energy, and money into the Seven Wonders universe. Seven Wonders is one of the 2 remaining games I have from my first games that I bought in 2011, 2012, I can't remember which one. But from those first games that I purchased, Seven Wonders and Castles of Burgundy are the only ones left. And when I say first games, I don't mean 3. I mean in the first 40 games I bought, there's 2 left. Many of them have left over time for one reason or another. Some of them lasted a long time. Pandemic I just got rid of this year. It lasted a long, long time. But Seven Wonders and Castle of Burgundy are still standing. Castle of Burgundy I think will last forever. I could be wrong, but I think it will last forever. Seven Wonders I have a little bit more doubt about because it's a lighter game. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it means that for myself, it's not one I often pull out, and I have seen most of what they have done with the game. But I still enjoy it. It's still quick enough. It's still fast-paced enough. It still is a great game to pull out with new people. It is still rewarding enough when I have too many people to play a game that I would otherwise want to play, and we have 6 people, and it's the end of the night, and we want something fun. Seven Wonders hits the bill each time. So yeah, I'm upgrading to the new version of the game with the new artwork, the new iconography, the new systems or whatnot, and adding that to my collection. Next up, we have Guildmaster. Guildmaster, I'm just looking at my feet, choosing which one to pick. Guildmaster I did a review on. This is a solid game by Good Games Publishing, but one that I do not think hits my group dynamic. I had a few small issues with it. Also, I got something wrong in the review. I pinned a update, a comment or whatnot. I got one thing wrong in my review. Effectively, let's cover the game, we'll talk about the review. Guildmaster is a game where you're going to be managing different guilds, and you're going to be going after different areas on the board. I believe there's 13 areas on the board you're fighting over, from building new buildings, to fighting over the quests you're going to be going on, to fighting over various new members of your guild to add to your guild. All these things will give you points in different ways. Some of them will also be building your tableau at the same time. The game has an element of secretly choosing what you're going to do behind a player screen, and then revealing and carrying out the actions in sequential order, potentially fighting or having conflicts with other players who went to the same thing. Which means you can play the game 2 ways. You can just play it blindly and hope that you don't interact, or if you do interact, you win. Or alternatively, you can play it by cooperating, by talking, by saying, hey, you go there, I'll go here, maybe you're telling the truth, maybe you're not. It is a game that allows for a degree of backstabbery and betrayal and all things like that. It's a game that I should love. It checks a lot of the boxes I love. The art is gorgeous. The game is solidly designed. Lots of things about it are really, really solid. but the actual end-up gameplay ends up being a little bit too cutthroat in a game style that I don't love as much being cutthroat. The part that I got wrong in my review is I talked about the board not resetting, not adding more stuff until every third round. That's something I got wrong. I actually played it correctly the first time. Then I reread the rulebook, which I often do after playing a game, and I was like, oh, we played it wrong. And then I played it the wrong way, which I liked less, which is why in my review I suggested a house rule of playing it the way that I had originally played, which is the correct way to play, which I thought was the wrong way to play. This might be confusing. Point is, I played this both correctly and incorrectly. I liked it more when I played it correctly, shockingly enough. But overall, it is one that while I enjoyed, while I will not turn down, it's one that it doesn't fit my game group as much as I would otherwise like. Moving on from there, let's go with the one that I have not played. So, Clinic. Clinic is going to be the only game on this list that I have not played, and it's one that I did not even try to add to my collection, which is why it's so easy for me to see it go. It's one that I've seen this one, and I've been intrigued by this one, but the only reason I actually got it in my collection is I was doing a trade where the person tried throwing in another game to get another game, and he offered Clinic, and I was like, I've been semi-tempted by that one, and so I said sure. And I've not once looked at it on my shelf and thought to myself, I need to play Clinic. It's because I never really picked it in the first place. I was kind of willing to try it. Now, to be fair, Rurik is one of my favorite games. Rurik, what's it called? What is it called again? It's called Rurik Dawn of Kiev. It's one of my favorite games, and it also fell into that exact same category. It was a game that I reluctantly agreed to take in an extra trade, and I love it now. So yeah, sometimes you can have these hidden gems. Sometimes you can actually end up finding these amazing games, which is why I was willing to say yes to Clinic. Yet, unlike Rurik, I just don't find myself looking at Clinic when it's time to pull out another game, when I want something heavy, and this is a heavy game. This is a heavy experience. It's one in which you're running a clinic, you're running a hospital. And so when I want something this heavy, I am instead going to first reach for the Gallerist, Lisboa, Escape Plan, or any of the other heavy games that I have not had a chance to play, that I have chosen, that I have selected, I have spent time trying to decide whether it's the right game for my collection, or Anachrony for that matter. There's a lot of heavy games I need to get to the table. Clinic, unfortunately, is a heavy game that I did not select and choose and desire as much, and so it is sadly leaving my collection. Well rated though. Check it out. Obviously, this is not a criticism of the game, because I haven't played it. Moving on to Magic Maze. Magic Maze, a game that I love and easily recommend. This is a great game. Why are you getting rid of it, Alex? An excellent question. So, Magic Maze is going to be a game in which there's going to be a degree of real time, there's going to be a degree of non-communication in the game. Basically, you are all cooperatively in a mall trying to find your weapons and then escape before you're caught. And so, aside from the fact that you should not steal, boys and girls, not a good thing, but aside from that, the game is whimsical, it's cute, it's easy to play, it's a lot of fun. Every time I play this, I enjoy it, and yet I think I've played it out. This is a game where they have a bunch of scenarios, and I've gone through all the scenarios multiple times. I've played through the game. The game basically involves you not being able to talk to each other while you operate different aspects of the characters. So, for example, let's say you're playing, I don't know, whatever player count you're playing. One player might be responsible for moving the characters up and to the left. One player might be responsible for revealing new tiles and using the elevator. You have this variety of like 8 or so actions in the game that are broken down. I think it's 7 actions, whatever it is. 7 actions that are divided amongst the people playing the game. And they all have to kind of know, without talking to each other, what you're doing. So I'll move my character up, and you need to move it to the left, but you don't necessarily know that you need to move it to the left. So we have to kind of have this mental mind meld of trying to go for the same goals. There are occasional breakpoints in the game where you can talk to each other, and you can realign. You can be like, come on, I want you to go up, move that character there. No, you're moving this there. Okay, great, ready, and go. And then you rush back into it without talking again. I enjoy the experience. I recommend the game. It is solid, fun. I love it. And again, I've played through every scenario at least once. I think I played every scenario at least twice. And I just ready to move on from it. There is an expansion for the game as well. Play through that as well. Good game. Time for me to move on from it. But I do recommend this. If you like games like The Mind, if you like games like, what's that robot one? Quirky Circuits. If you like games in that genre, or even The Crew, I think that this falls well into that hidden communication style game. It does have a real-time aspect, which you may not like, depending on the games you like or don't like. So if you're fine with real-time, and if you like the hidden communication, solid game, worth checking out. Next up, let's go with 2 small ones, Spicy and Coup. So, Spicy and Coup are going to both be bluffing games. Spicy, I play a decent amount, and I'm moving on from. Coup, I haven't played in years, and I'm moving on from. So what's up with these games? So, I like bluffing games. I like filler bluffing games. They hit a good niche in my spot, whatever. They hit a good niche in my gaming group, where end of the night or beginning of the night or whatever moment in time that we have, like 10, 15 minutes, we want to play a good bluffing game, we pull games out. We pull out Skull. We pull out Cockroach Poker. And I think we're going to continue to pull out Skull and Cockroach Poker and not so much Spicy or Coup. So Spicy is going to be a more recent one that I added to my collection that we really enjoyed it. I got a recommendation from this from Jan from Quackalope. He liked it. We played it. We kept playing it. We liked it. We liked it more and more with each play. The general principle of this game, of Spicy, is that you're going to play a card to this row that you have to kind of follow someone else's card. Now, you can lie about one thing. Well, sorry, you basically say a card is, let's say, I'm going to say it's the 7 red. And then you get to call me out. You get to say, I think you're lying. Now, if you say, I think you're lying about the number, and it was 7, but it was blue, well, you're wrong. Because you not only have to call that someone's lying, you have to call what they're lying about. Which leads to a little bit of an interesting mind game, especially when you combine these variable cards you can add that change the rules every time you play. Lots of fun playing Spicy. And yet, every time I play it, we'd rather play Cockroach Poker. It is a game that, as we played it, it went up and up in our estimation, but then it kind of plateaued. And while it started here, Spicy started here, Cockroach Poker's over here, Spicy went up and up each time we played it, and then it kind of just stopped moving up, and Cockroach Poker is still higher than Spicy. So while I think Spicy is a good game, while I would recommend trying it out if you like bluffing games, maybe you'll rank it higher than I do, it's one that just after, I don't know, 8 or 9 plays, we're just like, nope, Cockroach Poker is the game we'd rather play. Spicy's good. Cockroach Poker is better. Then from there we have Coup. Coup is a game that once I was getting rid of Spicy, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be cutthroat about Spicy, I should be cutthroat about Coup. Coup is a game that I had for a long time, and it's an excellent game. It's another bluffing game with a little bit more intricacy going on. I call Duke, I'm taking 3 coins. I call Assassin, I'm going to kill you. I call Contessa, you can't kill me. It has an interesting degree of bluff and double bluff that works well. My problem with Coup is basically that it's not Cockroach Poker or Skull. It's a good game. It's a solid game, but it requires a bit more explanation to get people going. Not a lot, mind you, but more than Cockroach Poker requires, more than Skull requires, and I don't think the depth of gameplay is better than those 2 games. Ultimately, all 3 of those games come down to bluffing to each other's faces and just being able to read your opponent or know the game state to try to best call when that bluff made sense or not. I think Coup has a slightly higher investment of time in it. I think it does give a drop more intricacy. You might enjoy Coup more. Again, Lord knows I enjoy this game. If I'm ever at a convention and you're like, let's play Coup, I am good to go. I will 100% be calling assassin on you left, right, and center, and then going for that bluff. There's lots of fun ways to play Coup. You can add the expansion as well, Coup Rebellion, I think. Coup Rebellion is the expansion. Gives more characters. I like base Coup more, but even so, I haven't played it in a long time because my small bluffing needs are being filled elsewhere. So, that's going to be Coup and Spicy. Next up, we have Istanbul Dice Game, a game I've gotten rid of once before and I'm getting rid of again. Istanbul Dice Game is going to be the dice game version of Istanbul, shockingly enough. It's a game that, if you've played Istanbul, carries a lot of the same high notes as Istanbul, the same aspect of collecting rubies or collecting goods or money. Well, collecting rubies and then trading in goods or money to get rubies, as well as other aspects of the game. It does hit the high notes of Istanbul, but it's a game that I got rid of because of the fact I got rid of it last time, a while ago. I don't remember how long ago. It might have been before I was doing these videos about games leaving my collection. But I got rid of Istanbul, the dice game, because it gave me, let's just use rough made up numbers here, it gave me 60% of the experience of Istanbul, but was only 40% as fun. Let's just make up those numbers. No, that sounds, I don't know. I can't do the numbers. The point is, while it gave me enough of the Istanbul experience, it did not give so in proportion to what I wanted out of it. Sure, it plays a little bit quicker, and it's a little bit quicker. It's not drastically quicker. I'd rather just play Istanbul almost every single time. If you want to, there's a small area in which Istanbul the dice game is the right game to pull out. That small area is where I want something a drop longer or more Istanbul-like than a shorter roll and write game that we'll have fun with, but I also don't have time for Istanbul. And such a short window that Istanbul does not get played. We got rid of this game, and we got it back because my wife and I had fond memories of playing it. We're like, no, it's a good game. We like playing it. We should get it back. And we got it back and we played it once, and we haven't played it again. It captures a lot of the same notes as Istanbul. It is a good game, but not one we pull out because most of the time we would rather either Istanbul itself or a shorter roll and write experience instead. And so that's Istanbul the dice game. Another solid game. Lots of solid games here. Moving on. Let's go with Cottage Garden next. Cottage Garden is going to be a game from Uwe Rosenberg's tile laying series of games. Uwe Rosenberg has a series of tile laying games, which are either 3 or 4, depending on whether you count patchwork. It's going to be Cottage Garden, Spring Meadow, And what's the fall one? The fall one is Indian Summer. Indian Summer. And then, of course, Patchwork is the fourth one. Not part of the same trilogy, but also a tile laying game. So 3 or 4. By the way, if you watch the Going Analog game show, they had that issue on their show just recently where they're like, it's a series of 3 games, or 4 games, or 3 games, or 4 games. I think their confusion is Patchwork. I think that was their confusion part that they were missing. Either way, this game is going to be it's going to be another tile laying game where you're basically building polyominoes into your garden. Now, this is one that I've always enjoyed, but I still would rather play other polyomino games. I'd rather play Project L, even though it feels very different. I'd rather play Barren Park, which feels more similar. And I'd rather play Indian Summer as well. It is a good game. But and I got rid of Spring Meadow a long time ago for the same reason, that Spring Meadow was my least favorite in the collection. And with more and more polyomino games constantly being added to my collection, more and more games in general constantly being added to my collection, the next lowest from that trilogy fell off. Still have Patchwork. Patchwork still hits a bit of a quicker niche, 2 players, easy to jump into. This one has a little more going on for it. I like it. I do. But it's hard to play every single game I like, so this one is leaving. Indian Summer, by the way, I can see Indian Summer hitting one of these lists as well, especially as more polyomino games enter the collection, because it's, again, like these games, I like a lot of games. It's a question of where you choose to put your time and energy when you have a lot of games and more coming. That's going to be that. Next up, let's go with something, we'll save the best 2 for last, I guess. So let's go with some small ones. Shards of Infinity. Shards of Infinity, both boxes for here. I have all the content for it. This one was always on the chopping block for a long time, and yet I think Asonia knocked it firm off the chopping block. Asonia, which I will have a review and gameplay of at some point with Rena. We need to play that one. But Shards of Infinity is kind of Star Realms. Basically is Star Realms. To the point, I've debated doing a play this, not that with Star Realms and Shards of Infinity, and then just reading a book the whole time, and then at the end of 20 minutes saying, they're the same game, whatever. They're not the same game. They have slight nuanced differences, but they're basically the same system. And I think Shards of Infinity is arguably better than Star Realms. Arguably because I don't own Star Realms anymore, but I do own Shards of Infinity, although that dynamic is now changing here as well. Basically, if you haven't played these games, they're going to be light deck builder games where you build a deck and then you combine different factions together to more strongly augment how you play against each other. So, if I'm strong in one faction, I have additional options. Now, Shards of Infinity brings a little bit more things to the table, such as the aspect of your infinity thing where you can do an infinite damage when you level up properly enough. As you level up a certain aspect of your character, you get to a point where you can deal infinite damage and kill the person right away. There's also going to be aspects of using mercenaries in the row where you can kind of use a card and remove from the row, getting its ability, potentially denying your opponent. Some small, cute, clever aspects of the game. I like Shards of Infinity. It doesn't see play a lot. I don't have a firm reason why. But with Asonia being added to our collection, I kind of don't need a reason anymore because now Asonia is going to be played as opposed to these. Asonia is the same deck building experience. Well, different deck building experience, but Asonia has that aspect of, being strong in factions, variable different ways to play the game, expansions, other aspects like quick deck building. And yet I like Asonia a lot more. My wife and I are really enjoying Asonia, and it's more about building yourself up than hurting your opponent. So, nuance because you could take away opponents' points, but ultimately in Shards of Infinity or in Star Realms, the goal is to reduce your opponents to 0. In Asonia, the goal is for you to win. So slight nuance difference. We prefer the genre of you trying to win than trying to reduce your opponent to 0. Solid games. Enjoy them. I've enjoyed them a lot. I enjoy Star Realms too. Easy recommendations across the board for games you should totally try at some point, and then decide whether it stays in your collection or not. For myself, Asonia is going to be the one we keep from those 3, even though they're not directly comparable, they're comparable enough in the feeling and experience they give us. Next up, Glasgow. Glasgow, another shut up and sit down recommendation that I am not keeping. Now, to be fair, I like the recommendation. I absolutely do. Glasgow is an excellent game. Glasgow is a game that we played a few times. It's a 2-player game specifically, and it's going to be one in which you basically have this circle of characters, and you're going around the circle activating different characters to do different things. So I land on the character, and I get this, and I land on that, and I get that. But if I go too far ahead, then you can activate people until you catch up to me. So you need to balance that. It's very similar to a game called Circle the Wagons, which is how I heard about Glasgow, because they were talking about Circle the Wagons in a video, and then they took a brief interlude to recommend Glasgow instead. In addition to. For myself, Glasgow, I see no reason to play this compared to Circle the Wagons. While I appreciate that the puzzle that Glasgow brings to the table, I appreciate the little center aspect you have going on in the game where you're building out this central region that you can put down a tile, activate a bunch of abilities. It's a fun little extra aspect. The core scoring and mechanism, I cannot think for the life of me a reason why I would ever play Glasgow over Circle the Wagons. Did I enjoy Glasgow? 100% I did. Do I recommend it? If you have Circle the Wagons and want to try another game, yeah, but get Circle the Wagons first. It's a better game, in my opinion. It's a cheaper game, in my opinion. It takes up a smaller footprint. It is easier to understand and play. Every single aspect of Circle the Wagons, with the possible exception of the art, is better. And the art I do like, but that's going to come down to whether you like, what's his name? Whether you like, hey, who's the illustrations? This is not Michael Menzel. It's different. I don't know. Either way, I like the art of the game, but Circle the Wagons to me basically wins on nearly every single count. Now I'm just moving my box around because whatever. Anyways, next up we have Horrified. Horrified. This is the one that I really have to think about in this video. I mean, honestly, a bunch that I have to think about it because that's the way these videos go. But Horrified. Horrified is a game that is by someone. It's by Universal Games. Prospero Hall. That's what I was looking for. Prospero Hall did Horrified. Now, Prospero Hall is going to be... okay, let's take a step back. Sorry for this. So, Horrified. Horrified is a game that effectively is a cooperative game where you're trying to defeat a bunch of monsters. One of the things I really enjoy about Horrified is the way you can level up the difficulty of the game by just adding more and more monsters. And each monster you add, so you can have a 2-monster game, which is pretty easy. A 3-monster game is a bit of a challenge. A 4-monster game, I mean, good lord, you're good at the game. And a 5-monster game, I have got to meet you because you are good at this game. And of course, you can go all the way up to 7 monsters. If you've played and won this at 7 monsters, I want to know. Now, granted, I've only played the game like 10 times, something like that, so it's not like I've played it enough to win it at 7 monsters, but it is a solid game. It's a pandemic alternative experience to introducing people to cooperative games. Easily, if you want to know a good cooperative game to start your collection with, if you're like, I want to try co-ops, I'd be like, well, Forbidden Desert's excellent. You can also try Horrified, Pandemic. It would be in my intro list of cooperative games to introduce people to. But no differently than the way Pandemic has not lasted in my collection, neither is Horrified. The theme doesn't do anything for me. I don't care about classic movie monsters in the slightest. The miniatures, the production quality, it's all okay. Doesn't do much for me there either. The gameplay is easy and fun and streamlined, and it's a good introductory cooperative experience. But I don't play good introductory cooperative experiences. I tend to play cooperative experiences with my kids, of which I would much rather play Trogdor. Trogdor, the Burninator, that's a much better cooperative game to play with my kids as far as the experience and fun we get out of the system. I'm not necessarily sure it's a better game, it's just we find burninating the whole countryside to be a lot of fun. And as far as heavier cooperative games, I have a lot of those as well. This falls into this mid-zone of a good introductory cooperative game that lasts in my collection for a good 2 years, and it's time to move on from it because we don't play it anymore. And that's going to be Horrified. Which brings us to the last game of today's video, which is going to be Raiders of Scythia. Now, Raiders of Scythia is not going to be that much of a surprise to those of you who know my feelings of Shem Phillips games in general. Now, no disrespect to Shem Phillips. I say this every single time. Shem Phillips has 3 games in the top 100. That is insane. So good for him, good for everyone who likes his games, and that's awesome. For myself, I got Raiders of Scythia because nearly every single one of Shem Phillips' games falls into this category of I liked it, I didn't love it. I enjoyed the experience without being obsessed and pulled in by it. It's good. I will happily play them. I don't feel the need to own them. That is true of Arctex The West Kingdom, which I've tried twice now. I've got it, played it a few times, got rid of it, got it back, played it a few times, got rid of it. So Arctex The West Kingdom is a good game that I don't feel the need to own. Paladins of the West Kingdom is a heavier game that I thought was really rewarding and I don't feel the need to own. Raiders of the North Sea was good. I got all the expansions and tried the expansions to see if that made the game better. It did. Still didn't feel the need to own it. I got Raiders of Scythia, wondering if this makes the game better, and it does. This is my favorite version of the Raiders of the North Sea trilogy so far. It is my favorite version. I like this better than Raiders of the North Sea with all expansions. I think this is streamlined. It's nice. I love the eagles and the eagles and horses it adds to the game. I think this is the best version of Raiders of the North Sea, but it's still not enough for me to own it, which again, it's not their fault. This is my fault for continuously getting his games. Now I still have Viscounts on my shelf over there. I still have Viscounts. I hope to give that a shot. It may be the one that makes me keep it. It may not be. I don't know. I'm not optimistic. Not because Viscounts isn't a good game. By all accounts, from everything I'm seeing, Viscounts is a good game. But good or not, I just have not had the track record I would like with Garphill Games, with Shem Phillips designs. Lots of people love them. Check them out. By all means, if you like Raiders of the North Sea, I recommend this one. Unless, of course, you specifically want the art of Raiders of the North Sea, in which case I am sympathetic. The art, by the way, has grown on me more and more the more I played this. But nonetheless, better art or not, better game or not, it's still not enough for me to keep this one. And that is going to be games leaving the collection in May. Another month ahead, lots more games, as always. At some point I'll have to make some really hard decisions. And if you're saying, Alex, aren't these hard decisions? I mean, yes and no. Ultimately, most of the time when I get rid of games, I don't actually have a lot of regret around them. I don't sit there and agonize over but I want that game. I do kind of miss Coloma a little bit from last month's video. It's a good game, but I had issues with it, but I kind of would, I'd be down for playing Coloma again. Want to see that one. Not getting it back. Not doing that right now. I've learned over time that even when I do have regrets, more often than not, if I get a game back, like in Istanbul, the dice game, I find out soon after why I got rid of it in the first place. My initial impressions are right 80-90% of the time. That said, there are exceptions. There's going to be Everdell. There's going to be Raj of the Ganjas. Those are good exceptions, which I got them back and was like, oh boy, I like this game a lot more than I thought the first time around. Quacks of Quedlinburg. It's a game I got back, and I liked it more the second time around. There are exceptions, but for every exception that lasts in my collection, take two, there are at least 5, 6, or 7 that are reaffirmed as to why I got rid of them the first time. As always, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you don't take any of these picks too personally, because why would you? They're what I chose not to keep, not what you chose not to keep. Until next time, have a good one.